Hello and welcome to the Two-Man Booth, your weekly scheduled podcast on the crazy world of professional wrestling. With me, Jonathon.
And me, Adam. And we will start this week as we always do with the news. And I think the first thing we need to talk about is the fact that the Young Bucks beat Pentagon Jr. and Phoenix to win the AAA Tag Team Championships last weekend. Really big moment. The Young Bucks interestingly worked down there as heels, but it was obviously big to see them win that. It was the first wrestling appearance since Wrestle Kingdom, I believe. So, really big news, and I guess they're going to do something maybe with the AAA tag titles at Double or Nothing.
Yeah, I think this is certainly an interesting thing that's happened in the last week. It certainly promises much for maybe some kind of possible relationship between AAA and AEW moving forward. The fact that they're willing to actually be a part of, the angle that the Young Bucks and the Lucha Bros have got going. Promises much for their future going forward, maybe as a partnership, and I think we're all looking forward to that match. We're all expecting a lot, and it should be fantastic.
Well, we obviously saw at the Double or Nothing rally that there is a relationship between AAA and AEW, but obviously, like you're saying, this is clearly quite strong, which was not something we knew. We knew they had a relationship, but it's a good point you're making in the sense that we weren't sure how strong this relationship was, but putting the tag titles on the Young Bucks clearly means it's very strong.
Yeah, and it's straight away putting the tag titles on them. It's not as if it's just like they've given them a win over Lucha Bros on a show. Like they've just given them the tag belts straight away.
And we also had news that AJ Styles has signed a new contract with WWE this week. It's long since been rumoured. I kind of enjoyed the way AJ announced it on Twitter, kind of burying it in the middle of a post about getting a new dog. I thought that was clever and a bit cute. But interesting that he signed down his long-term future there. Obviously got a lot of friends in AEW, and there's a lot of money to be made on that side of things as well. But WWE have treated him really well. We give WWE rubbish sometimes for the way they treat some of their talent and how they push certain people. But since he's been there, he's been treated as a major, major star, and I can understand why he was quite happy to sign his name on the dotted line.
Yeah, so can I. I think this is good news for both parties, really. WWE would have wanted to keep him around, make sure he didn't go anywhere else. And I think AJ kind of sees his career probably winding down at WWE now. I don't think he has any reason to go anywhere else.
He's on his way to a Hall of Fame career with them.
Yeah, absolutely. He's well on the way. And he'll be a big part of any booking and any storylines they have for the next several years. So really good news for both parties, really.
Well, sort of with a loose connection to AEW, Ali became a free agent recently. After being told that she could leave Impact, they basically said that they wanted to rejuvenate their roster and they were very complimentary about her, all things considered, but decided to change things up and told her she would no longer be needed with the company. And straight away, on this week's episode of The Road to Double or Nothing, it was announced that Ali is now a member of AEW. Huge get for AEW for me. I really, really like Ali. I think she's got a lot of talent in the ring. And some of the stuff towards the end of her Impact run I wasn't feeling, but a lot of the storylines they did with her there were really, really good. And if AEW can come up with some of the same sort of things, not the same sort of things, but like similarly good storylines, then I think Ali will be a massive success in that division. Yeah,
I can only see Ali being a success there. And we've said that they're building up slowly a very, very good women's division.
Definitely.
And I think Ali's a fantastic addition to that. She's very good in the ring. She's very good at her character work. She really gets who her character is. This very innocent baby face and, white meat baby face for life. And she really gets that, and she portrays that character so well. And I think she'll be a massive part of their women's division moving forward.
And on the subject of signings, NXT have signed DJZ. Kind of an interesting pickup. I've always kind of liked DJZ, but he was not somebody I was screaming out for NXT to sign.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised by this. I mean, DJZ's he's a good wrestler. I would never say he's anything more, but certainly nothing less than that either. But there was no one clamouring for NXT to sign him. I mean, I wonder, he may have been signed under the NXT banner. I wonder whether he maybe goes 205 Live because they have lost some people in recent times. I wonder whether that's to bolster 205 Live.
To be honest, I'm not even sure whether it's that or whether it's the fact that WWE just seem to want to sign a lot of people at the minute because they don't want to risk the likes of AEW or New Japan or Ring of Honor or whoever picking up great talent. So they're trying to almost lock down the market on talent. So anybody who's got a crumb's worth of talent, they're on WWE's radar right now.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, given the chance, I can guarantee he could probably get over in NXT. I think anyone can get over in NXT that's got talent. So I'll look forward to see how he gets on. But this did surprise me somewhat, I must say.
And speaking of WWE, they've moved their headquarters. Well, they haven't moved them yet, but they are moving their headquarters. They will no longer be based at Titan Towers.
Which is a shame, because when I think of Titan Towers, I must be honest, I think of the Super Bowl advert. I just can't help but think of the Super Bowl advert, we're wholesome family entertainment.
Yeah, where Undertaker throws somebody out of a window.
Yeah, and we're trying to make the world a better place for mankind. Like, I just think of that, and
it is a great, considering some of the awful Super Bowl adverts they had over the years. That was an actually really funny and entertaining one.
It was awesome as well.
Yeah. And we've also had Adam Rose announce his retirement from wrestling. Obviously, some bad stuff in his past, not going to lie. And he went through a lot of problems in his personal life, shall we say. And I don't really want to go into any more detail than that because they're very personal things. But he once looked like he was going to be somebody who could have been mid-card for life on the WWE roster. And when
really
they brought him
NXT.
up, they just could not, similar to No Way Jose, they just did not understand what made him over in NXT and they couldn't capitalize on it. So it's kind of sad in a way to see that he's retired from the business.
Yeah, sad. I mean, we hope he goes on to, bigger and better things, whatever he decides to do with his life. At one point, I really thought that his character was going to make it big. On several occasions, I thought it would have been really interesting, maybe in like a non-PG environment, had they sort of gone down the idea that maybe he was sort of the leader of more of a cult with the Rosebuds.
Kind of similar to like Raven's flock.
Exactly,
yeah.
and that maybe he was coercing these people into being part of his cult, and that could have been an interesting change. But I think in a PG environment, it was quite difficult to tell that story. I think I tried once upon a time, and it's quite difficult to tell that story.
You couldn't have Billy Kidman scratching his arms.
No, you couldn't.
No. And we also, last but not least, have the fact that you saw a picture on Twitter, I believe it was the other day, of Undertaker with long hair, dyed. Now, a lot of people are kind of attributing this to the fact that he may be at Mania, but the rumour is, and it's not officially confirmed by WWE, but the heavy rumour is that he will be appearing at the Saudi Arabia show in May.
Yeah, this is interesting to me. I do hope that it's a WrestleMania thing, because it would seem quite early to dye your hair ahead of the Saudi show. But at the same time, like if that's just all it is, then it's good news that Taker's coming back. I know Taker is in no way what he used to be, but it's still cool to see Taker.
Just hopefully his last match is not his last match, if that makes sense, because that tag match he had with Kane against Hunter and HBK.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that.
Is officially at this point in time his last match, and I do not want that to be Undertaker's last match.
The shame really is that Taker's last match really should have been the match against Roman. The way that match ended,
yeah, and it wasn't
perfect.
Even a great match, but the story they told and the ending, like you say, was very fitting of an end to his career.
Yeah, and I think Taker will come back as long as he's asked to come back. I think he's just a company man. As long as they want him, he'll keep coming back.
And that's the news for this week. So with that, we will move on to Monday Night Raw. So this week, we opened the show with Brock and Paul Heyman. Lesnar was getting some uber heat here, and he raised the title to more sort of raucous booing. The crowd hated both guys, yet they still chanted along with Heyman's intro.
Of course.
Classic. Paul says Seth seems to think that Brock has a stylistic problem with smaller guys, but Rollins is a fool. He asks who won the matches with Styles and Balor and Bryan.
Didn't we say that last week?
The answer is Brock. Yeah, we did say that last week.
Yeah.
And now Seth has got himself in a match tonight, this close to WrestleMania, with Drew McIntyre. Heyman questions the sanity of Seth and puts over Drew. This brought out McIntyre, who said finally he is getting the respect he deserves. He tells Brock that he needs to find a new opponent for WrestleMania because Rollins won't be making it. Seth comes out with a chair and annihilates Drew with it. I almost got motion sickness as the camera went up and down with Seth beating, and the incessant camera cuts between. There was one like steady camera and then one camera that was going up and down,
jerking up and down.
and it was just nauseating. And you see the gif on Twitter of the actual camera that they were moving up and down, up and down, up and down. It looked like the guy who was doing it was having a stroke.
No, I haven't seen. I've seen one from someone who was, a fan there at the show, just watching the cameraman just go up.
That's what I mean. That's the gif I'm
yeah,
yeah.
and it's just so ridiculous. Like, what irritates me is that it actually makes the chair shots look more impactful if you just have a steady cam.
Yeah, because you can actually see the movement.
Like, we've talked about this and how it would be really, really bad at showing impact of moves. In that, when someone does a diving move,
they follow
the guy down from at the top rope. Whereas in New Japan Pro Wrestling, for example,
they shoot from the bottom.
So you see the impact of the height and things like that.
Anybody who's done any kind of camera work at all, I did media studies at college and then went on to do broadcast journalism at university.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of this. It's called, it sounds awful, but it's called the victim position, which is basically shooting from the floor up at a target, and it makes them look bigger, and it makes the distance they're traveling look more severe. So when New Japan shoots up from the ground in the victim position to say Hiroshi Tanahashi doing a high fly flow off the top rope, it looks like he's coming off the top of a mountain, and it looks like he's coming down to kill somebody. If you're WWE and you follow the guy down, you take that impact away, and it was the same scenario here.
Yeah. What I will say overall is that I wasn't really in love with the segment. I must be honest. It was fine, and it served to set up the rest of the show. But I must be honest, Lesnar and him are getting less and less over with me constantly.
Well, Seth then got in the ring, but Brock bailed, and then the one bit of the segment that I really, really did love was, did you see Brock's facial expressions as Seth was approaching the ring?
Yeah.
Just like this look of horror and shock. Like, it did more to sell me on their match at Mania than anything they've done in this build so far.
Like 6 F5s.
yeah, because that did nothing. So eventually Brock teased getting back in, but then backed off. I personally thought this was fun, although the one thing I will say is I still don't get the appeal of Drew McIntyre. I'm sorry. I know the internet loves him, and I know a lot of people whose opinions I really respect think a lot of Drew McIntyre, so there's obviously something that I'm missing, but he just does nothing for me.
For me, he's kind of like, he's more than fine and serviceable in the upper mid card, but I have no desire to see him go any higher up the card. I think they see him as a main eventer.
Yeah.
Ironic considering that they didn't for ages and put him in 3MB, but they obviously see him as something now. I see him as something decent, but not something great. But like I said, I must be honest, like I think you liked this opening segment more than I did.
I think I did, definitely.
I am getting sick of this, it's the start of the show. We'll throw a segment out there, a promo for 15 minutes.
It's very formulaic.
It's just change it up for once. Change it up.
So we got a video highlighting Balor's loss of the IC title and the rekindling of Lashley and Leo's friendship. And then we saw the two preparing backstage. Balor came out and they sort of teased his partner for the upcoming tag match being Braun. Balor talked about St. Patrick's Day and losing the IC title. He doesn't plan on being a former champ for long, and this brings out Leo and Lashley. Leo talks about Lashley's new favourite pose, which he shows off by raising the title as Leo mocks Chicago for not winning championships. Balor tells Lashley not to get too used to that pose as he plans on getting his hands on that title real soon. And he brings out Strowman. What a shocker.
Yep.
So next up we had the tag match between Braun and Finn and Leo and Lashley. This match is being sponsored by Head & Shoulders. Becky bringing in that sponsorship money.
Because that's the way to make her cool. Just get her doing sponsorships.
She legit got that sponsorship though and brought it into the company.
Oh, did she?
They didn't get that sponsorship.
No
Becky
way.
got that sponsorship.
I take all of that back then. She is still the man.
Yeah, very much so. Making them money too. This was a sort of standard Raw tag match until Braun went for his power slam on Leo, only to be speared by Lashley. Balor and Lashley fought, leaving Leo to realise the opportunity he had in front of him. He hit the Dragon's Call frog splash, but Strowman kicked out. Rush tried to escape, but Balor stopped him, only to be driven into the timekeeper's area by Lashley. Strowman hit a shoulder tackle on Lashley. He caught Rush in the ring, hit a chokeslam on Leo as Lashley contemplated making the save and then decided against it. Strowman hit the power slam for the win. So I guess Lashley and Leo are no longer friends again?
Consistency is good.
Well, they've turned on each other about 76 times at this point.
It's getting to the point where they're both morons for actually remaining friends with each other.
Yeah. Next up, Ronda showed up with her husband in tow. A stroppy referee approached them and told Ronda she was late. There were extra security here tonight, as well as the fine they delivered to Ronda. She doesn't care.
Yeah, and the fine that it's an undisclosed fine.
Oh, thanks for that.
Because way to like sell the actual importance of it. They could have fined her like $5. Like, sell actually why it's important. Don't go, oh, it's an undisclosed fine.
So I'm just going to read me notes verbatim for the next segment. A moment of bliss is next. Why, dear God, what have I done to deserve this?
I love these. They are so much fun.
Really?
Yeah, they're great. Yeah,
Moving
I go to the toilet every time they come on.
Moving on. Bliss referenced the Oscars not having a host, but she said she's great and WrestleMania deserves her. She said she got somebody their own talk show, but I didn't hear the name, I did hear the name, but I didn't know the name. So if anybody knows who it is, apparently she got them the talk show. She brought out Elias. This could be actually fun, I thought, for a brief moment here, and then Alexa started flirting again. She says Elias is in a safe space because they both get interrupted constantly, but that won't happen tonight. Elias says he will be the headlining musical act at Mania, and now I finally get all of the Elias interruptions. Someone big must be interrupting him at Mania. Must be. It's got to be happening. He compared himself to Queen and Johnny Cash before No Way Jose's music hits. Heavy Machinery are leading the conga line. Alexa is furious, and we get some bad comedy where she was like, oh, we rehearsed this 7 times, or whatever she said, and I was just like, oh, can we move on, please? Elias then got in Otis's face, and when a man in what looked awfully like a Pentagon Junior mask, I don't know whether you noticed that, attacked Elias. Sadly, it was just No Way Jose, albeit with luminous green hair, which I think is new.
Yeah, it is fairly new.
It's new. Yeah. This sucked.
Yeah, why is Alexa not wrestling?
I don't know, but this sucked. Can we just end a moment of bliss? Because every single one of them has sucked.
Like, I really like Alexa and her character. She gets her character, and I know she's not great in the ring, but she's more than good at what she does. And I just wish they would just start using her as a wrestler again, because these segments that they're doing her more harm than good. They really are.
Elias versus No Way Jose happened straight after the break. Nothing of note happened. Elias won with Drift Away.
Thrilling so far, isn't it?
Yeah. Next up, Kurt Angle was out to announce his WrestleMania opponent. He's having a match tonight. The crowd loves him until he announces his opponent for Mania. The man who made his life a living hell, Baron Corbin.
Hooray!
Yeah. Now, if the reports that this is legitimately the match for Mania, not merely a swerve like I hoped are true, then this is ludicrous.
Like we said last week that he deserves something legitimately great, either just a pure technical match, or a full circle story, or just a huge star. He really deserves something much more, and Baron sucks.
It's Kurt Angle. He deserves more. And I know we praised Corbin's performance at Fastlane.
But one time does not a good wrestler make.
It was deserved, but the idea of him being Kurt Angle's last opponent ever
is sickening.
Is tantamount to blasphemy.
Yeah, it's awful.
Tantamount to blasphemy. It's awful. So Gable is out to be Angle's opponent tonight. Well, at least that's awesome. So next up we had Kurt Angle versus Chad Gable. They shook hands and the crowd chanted "This is awesome" early, but sadly seemed a bit bored for the rest of the match, which is a shame because it wasn't blow away, but I thought it was actually pretty good and probably the best Angle can do.
I agree.
At this point. Eventually, Angle locked on the ankle lock, but Gable countered and got a 2 count. Angle hit a German, but when he went for a second, Gable reversed it into an ankle lock of his own, which got major heat. Nobody wanted to see Chad Gable beat Kurt Angle here.
No.
Angle got out and then went for the Olympic Slam, but Gable countered into a DDT. He went for a top rope moonsault, very Angle-esque, but Angle moved and then locked in the ankle lock for the tap out. Angle and Gable hugged after the match, and Angle raised Chad's hand until Corbin came out. He said he humiliated Angle during his GM run, but he will gladly humiliate him in his last match ever too.
He humiliated himself as well during his GM run.
And that's all anyone will remember of Kurt Angle. I think the idea of Baron Corbin being the only thing anybody will remember of Kurt Angle's career might be the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Baron Corbin might not be the only thing that people actually remember about Baron Corbin's career.
So, next up, Corbin was backstage chatting with the Revival when Apollo Crews approached him and challenged him to a match tonight. Every time Corbin tried to talk, Crews asked him yes or no. Eventually, Corbin accepted. Crews mocked Corbin for having no friends. Oh, the irony of
Irony
a
of a babyface having no friends.
I know.
Because they're all morons,
Yeah.
and morons have no friends.
So Corbin said the Revival liked him and turned for confirmation to prove a point, and the Revival said, hell no. Okay, WWE's comedy is always awful, but that was actually really
It was actually
funny.
yeah, because no one likes Baron, because Baron's a tool.
But it was just the way Wilder and Dawson went, hell no, and sort of laughed as they were walking away.
As southern as they could possibly be well.
It was really funny, really well done. And next up, Rude Interviewer was in the ring with Sasha and Bayley. She asked them about the Iconics, claiming they were ducking them. Sasha goes to speak, but Bayley interrupts. Okay, Bayley's continuous interruption of Sasha at the start of almost every promo they do has to be going somewhere, right?
I assume it's...
has to be.
I assume they're not going to be champs for too long. I wouldn't be shocked if Sasha turns on Bayley the Raw after Mania, for example. I think that's coming. About time too.
So they're going to be on SmackDown, and it will be iconic. Out came Beth and Natalya. Beth is well liked by the crowd, and Natalya is not. Beth takes a long road to get to the point that she is ready to unretire and team with Natty to challenge Sasha and Bayley for the titles at Mania. They throw a few barbs at each other until Sasha gets very personal by telling Natty she's riding Beth's coattails in the hopes of a match at Mania. Natty slapped Sasha, and then all four got into it to varying degrees.
This happened. They're doing what we predicted, so I'm not surprised by this. Like we said, it'll probably be on the first hour of the Mania card or something like that, and it'll be fine.
It'll need to be, otherwise the crowd will die. So next up we had Natalya versus Sasha. We joined this in progress. Nothing happened until Nia came out. She put herself over and buried Beth. She said she's a prettier and stronger version of Beth. Yeah, that was my reaction too. It was all a distraction though, as Tamina showed up and shoved Beth into the post before wrecking Bayley and Sasha. Nia said she'd see them all at Mania.
She's not like most girls. That's what I've heard anyway.
Mojo talks to a mirror, so that's back.
Hey, no. This one was... I love these segments. I generally... Back when I was watching the show, I'd been kind of... Well, I hadn't been kind of... I'd been pretty bored up until this point. And then Mojo popped up and suddenly my face lit up. I mean, it sucked, but it was hilarious.
Yeah, you're a weird person.
I just find them hilarious. It's like when you go past a car crash, you kind of have to look at it. That's what these segments are like to me. I want to see Mojo get pushed. I want to see more of this rubbish.
Don't. No, don't.
Bucket Vince. Bucket.
Stop. So next up we had Ricochet versus Jinder Mahal. I'm pretty sure Jinder put Ricochet in a headlock for so long that season's actually changed.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had like a birthday or two as I was watching this. I mean, we've always criticised Cena for having like the 5 moves of doom. I'm pretty sure Jinder has just like the 1 move of doom, and it's just headlock. To be honest, can you imagine if Jericho had the list of his moves and they were all headlock?
That's Jinder.
It's Jinder. Yeah. 5 stars.
So Ricochet hit a dive onto Jinder and the Singh brothers before hitting the 630 in the ring for the win.
This happened.
Yeah. And a backstage employee named Sue Aitchison is this year's Warrior Award recipient. I've never had a problem with who the Warrior Award was given to every year, but this is certainly closer to what Warrior had in mind when he came up with the award. Michael Cole put her over and said he'd known her for 22 years. This was the most sincere I've ever heard Cole be. I wish we'd got a bit more of a detailed backstory for Sue, but overall I thought this was a nice segment.
Yeah, I thought this was really nice as well. When they actually show some heart, this makes WWE quite likeable, so no complaints. Like, you know, I don't know about her what her role has been backstage.
She's some form of backstage employee, and I believe she had something to do with helping the talent get like hotels and stuff like that. But I could be totally wrong. I'm not 100% on that.
So the talent, yeah, if she's involved with talent, then obviously they'll be in big support of her as well. So I'm sure that'll be a cool moment for the Hall of Fame.
So Dasha Fuentes interviewed Seth backstage. He tells Brock to watch his match and says he will burn Suplex City down at Mania. It was fine.
Yeah.
And then Rude Interviewer buried Dana and basically said she was going to get mutilated by Ronda. Not entirely inaccurate, but still harsh for somebody who's going out for a match for the Raw Women's Championship.
Way to sell the match too.
Dana said she was under no illusion that she's better than Ronda, but she only has to be better for 3 seconds. You know what, to be fair to Dana over the past couple of weeks, she's cut some really good promos.
She has, and she's, you know what, for 2 weeks she has remained the same alignment.
That is very unusual.
Consistency.
So next up we had Ronda versus Dana, and I don't mind this being a match, but I have no idea why the title needs to be on the line, like in this match. Like I didn't get that at all.
Dana's done nothing to actually warrant the title being on the line either.
Yeah, and you know, it didn't need it. This went about 10 seconds, literally. Ronda won with the armbar. She kept it on for a while after the bell and then shoved a ref down after she finally let go. This prompted security to approach her at ringside, but she slapped one of them. She was right in front of her husband, and he decked the security guard too before lifting Ronda over the barricade like she was a small doll, and they left. This did nothing for me. Ronda murdering Dana was exactly what it should have been, and I actually like how Dana has conducted herself during this mini angle, but the post-match stuff was very meh.
No, it didn't need to happen.
Yeah.
First off, I'm getting increasingly sick of this whole shoot angle that they're going down. It makes no sense. We all know wrestling's fake in 2019. It has been for a very long time now.
But you don't need to tell me it's fake, but this is the only thing that's real.
Yeah, it's nonsense. And the idea that, you know, Ronda's husband can so easily get past security is ridiculous.
Well, he was at ringside, to be fair.
No, but as in can actively get involved from ringside is stupid. And I also didn't like the fact that he sort of seemed to be leading Ronda out of the arena.
Women's evolution trademark.
Yeah, this whole idea of women's evolution and, you know, the women are the leaders of this movement. Well, for a while, it felt like he was walking her out of the arena. It was like the leading man in the relationship.
Like she was the small child he was leading away.
Yeah, it was a bit odd.
So next up, we had Apollo Crews versus Baron Corbin. Cole actually referenced how people aren't happy with Kurt's choice of opponent for Mania. I swear to God, if they try to pin this on Kurt, like Corbin being blamed for the ratings, I will die of laughter. I will just die of laughter if they actually blame Kurt Angle for choosing his own WrestleMania opponent that they have wrote the script for. I will just die.
I really do hope it's a swerve. But all the reports suggest that it isn't, but I really hope it is.
So the crowd chanted for Cena. He would actually have been a great choice for Kurt's last opponent given their history.
And Cena's first match in WWE was against Angle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they've got a lot of history together. So Corbin was arguing with the crowd and went for end of days, but Apollo turned it into an inside cradle and got the win. Okay, that was legitimately funny, but not for the right reasons.
No.
Kurt celebrated with Apollo. Like, Apollo, when was the last time Apollo won a match on Raw? Like, was it a year ago? Was it 2 years ago? Was it before Uhaa Nation was born?
I think it was probably his debut.
Yeah.
And I think it got crickets then.
And he beat Baron Corbin, who, at least at this point in storyline, is facing Kurt Angle at WrestleMania.
Yeah, it does actually mean something.
Most of the time, I want to see Apollo Crews beat Baron Corbin because he's infinitely more talented. But why here? Why here? Did Baron need to lose here? No. Did Apollo need to win here? No. Like, their booking makes no sense to me sometimes.
No, and it feels like they have no idea who's on what level at all. Like several weeks ago when we had Leo going toe-to-toe
with Balor.
Like, they just have no idea anymore. They're clueless.
So, I don't know about you, but this was what I felt was segment of the week coming up next. Batista is here via satellite. Did this do it for you?
Yeah,
let's go for it. The only reason we're saying this on air is we've totally forgot to talk about what was segment of the week this week. And off the top of my head, I think this was probably the best segment of the week.
Yeah, I'm okay going with this actually, because this we talked about, obviously last week we talked about how they did a lot of repair work from the first promo that Hunter cut,
and this was more good.
And this was more good work. So yeah, let's give it to this.
So, like I said, he was here via satellite, which was an easy heat magnet and got boos from the crowd because Batista wasn't actually in the building. Cole conducted the interview and asked why Batista hated Hunter. Batista was somewhat evasive, and then Cole asked if this goes back to the Evolution days. Batista says it goes further back. Batista says Hunter uses people to protect him, and he used Batista the same way. He said Hunter was his friend, but was also his boss and jealous of him, so kept Batista down. Batista didn't quit. He left to become a bigger star. Cole defended Triple H, but Batista asked him, "What's wrong with you?" I love Batista. He says the Cerebral Assassin is an appropriate nickname. He said Hunter had everyone fooled and was the most insecure, selfish control freak he'd ever met. He wants Vince to fire him and says he will end Hunter's career at Mania before shouting at the camera crew to get out. They started off slow, but ended up being a super effective promo. I thought Batista was great here. They blurred the lines in a good way here for me. You know, we talk about the shades of grey. Sometimes they want to go, oh, this is real, but nothing else is. That's not what this was. But it was a little bit like, a little behind the sort of curtain look where they're like, these are real life issues you don't see behind the scenes, and that's why Batista left, and that's why he's so angry. And you know what? Wrestling's real in their canon, so he's going to go and he's going to beat the crap out of Hunter at Mania.
Yeah, and what I thought was really good about it as well was that the stuff that they actually chose to say was things that people have thought about Hunter in the past. We know whether warranted or not, people have thought about it, and as a result, you got
There's an element of realism.
You got to a point where you were kind of like, he's kind of got a point. I don't like what he's saying, but he's kind of got a bit of a point here.
If you're going to incorporate shooty stuff, this is the way to do it, because there was an element of this which had a shooty vibe to it, where you could imagine somebody saying this about, even if Batista doesn't actually believe what he said, you could imagine somebody saying this about Hunter, and that's where the shooty stuff really works, because you can imagine it being real, but actually fits within the storyline as well. So it doesn't go, wrestling's fake, you idiots, but my stuff's real.
Ronda.
That's the stuff I hate.
Yeah.
So, Rude Interviewer then talked to Strowman about the Saturday Night Live guys. He says he's in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Alexa came in and said she wanted to broker peace between him and the Saturday Night Live guys. She asked him to give her a week. He accepted. Okay, I popped for the Team Little Big reunion, but why is this thing a storyline?
Why is Alexa involved?
Well, just her and Strowman together is always awesome, but... And she is apparently the host of WrestleMania, which means she has some form of booking duties or something.
Yeah, she now gets to make matches on Raw, which makes lots of sense.
And there's still going to be an Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal this year. At this rate, Mania is going to last for about 6 days. It's a good job we've both got a week's holiday. That's all I'll say.
Braun has to win that, you know.
Do you think he will?
I think if he doesn't, it's ridiculous, because the fact that Braun Strowman...
Can you imagine if...
is being relegated
I have no
to
idea
that.
what their names are, but can you imagine if the two Saturday Night Live guys cost him? And that's then an ongoing storyline from WrestleMania on over.
Like, genuinely, if I told you that Braun was going to be relegated to the Battle Royal 5 months ago...
There's going to be a lot of guys that shouldn't be in that match, because I reckon Andrade is going to be in that match.
It's just ridiculous, the amount of people that don't deserve to be in it that are. But Braun, come on, he's like...
They're going to book about a 45-match card that lasts for 6 years, and they've still got people in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. It's just ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah. So McIntyre came out for the main event. He cut an awful promo. He took credit for destroying the Shield. He knows Roman isn't the same because he is vulnerable without his brethren, and wants to talk not about Roman Reigns, but Joe, the man. He said Joe was sitting at home because of him, and challenged him to a fight at Mania. Then he asked him to choose his family and say no, because if they fight at Mania, all bets are off. I'm just going to read the next line verbatim, because this blew my mind, but not in a good way. You may have beaten leukemia, but on the grandest stage of them all, you will never beat me.
So what's the message that tells us, Adam?
Drew McIntyre scarier than cancer?
Yeah, and harder to defeat than cancer.
Yeah. This was awful.
They are
in
so
all
tasteless.
respects.
They are so tasteless.
They've got all the subtlety of a jackhammer.
Yeah, to brick to the face.
Yeah.
They are so tasteless. And what's worse is that, like, if this was a one-time thing, I'd understand, but, like, it's getting worse. It is getting worse. This need for constant heat, so they'll just say disgusting things.
I know I say this quite frequently, but can we fire whoever wrote that line? And also, this just made me think, this is the rest of Roman's career, isn't it? We're not going to go a storyline without somebody referencing his leukemia.
No, it's going
to be an ongoing thing.
It's going to be like Eddie 2006,
but
constantly,
permanently. And that's, you know what? Whatever you think of Roman Reigns, he deserves so much more than that. He's so much better than that.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. You're spot on.
So Rollins appeared on the Tron and said what he did earlier was for his brothers, but what is to come is for him. Rollins came out and he and McIntyre brawled on the ramp. A team of refs and agents came out to separate them as we got our now weekly Adam Pearce and James Gibson appearance. That was the best part of this segment.
And possibly Raw, apart from Batista.
So we joined Drew versus Seth in progress. Rollins was wearing Bears colours, cheap pop material, but it is actually genuinely his favourite football team, so fair play.
And it looked really cool.
It did. This was a decent main event, albeit very rest hold heavy early on. Seth missed a moonsault off the steel steps as we went to break. Later on, Seth went for a dive, but Drew slammed him into the barricade. He went for a steel chair, but before he could hit Seth with it, Seth caught him with a super kick. Multiple suicide dives followed, as well as a dodgy sling blade and then a kneeling super kick for a near fall. Crowd was really into it at this point, and Drew fought back and hit Seth with a nasty looking reverse Alabama slam. Seth hit his superplex, followed by a Falcon Arrow for a close 2 count. He did the deal. Seth set up for the curb stomp with the crowd chanting burn it down, but Brock's music hits. He came out and Seth was distracted because he's an idiot. Drew hit the Claymore for the win as Brock smiled to end the episode. Well, this was unbelievably stupid. This might now have surpassed Mania 2000 as the worst build to a Mania in my lifetime.
Yeah, it's horrendous. And there are a lot of similarities between both Mania builds. Like, why have Rollins lose? Like, why?
Stupidity.
And genuinely, like, why are the babyfaces treated like such morons? Do you remember how stupid Rock and Austin used to be?
Yeah.
Like how Vince used to like defeat them at every turn because they were just morons who would fall into his traps.
Yeah.
Oh no!
No, that didn't happen,
did it? No, because usually it was Vince that underestimated them. Used to get one up on him.
So I don't think this Raw was historic levels of bad, like the show from a few weeks ago, but this was a really bad wrestling show.
It was just boring.
No Lacey this episode, which was a bonus though.
No, man, I missed that. But it was I just found this one boring. I must be honest. It wasn't like it was bad, but it wasn't bad because it was offensive. It was just bad because it was boring. And like we always say that 3 hours of Raw is really hard to get through, but when it's boring, especially 3 hours is so hard to get through.
So this week's Raw did 2.69 million viewers, which was down 3% from last week's 2.78 million. Not a horrendous number, but considering this was a show with Brock, Batista and Ronda all heavily advertised, it's not really a great number and just goes to show that no one really draws anymore. The drop in viewership was a lot steeper this week too, as Hour 1 drew 2.81 million, broadly the same as last week, but Hour 3 drew just 2.55 million, down almost 250,000 from the same hour last week.
Wow. I mean, look at that. Like because we said last week was a pretty good and pretty consistent show compared to this, which was a pretty consistently boring show. Of course, people turned off.
So with that, we will move on to SmackDown. We opened with The Miz. Him versus Shane is official for Mania, and Miz throws to a video package of Shane's comments from last week. Miz says throughout his career he's taken shortcuts and sacrificed every relationship he's had outside of his wife and child, and his friendship with Shane meant everything to him. It was all to prove to his dad that he was proud of him, sort of that his dad could be proud of him rather. Heel father strikes again. Miz says he was warned about Shane, but he didn't believe it, and he was wrong. His dad watched as Shane decimated him and then put his hands on Miz's dad while Miz lay there helpless. Miz says Shane is rotten to the core just like Vince. He says Shane wasn't born the best in the world. He's a McMahon. He was born the worst in the world. They may own this company, but they don't own Miz and they don't own Kofi. That was a weird segue. He wasn't born rich and was told he would never amount to anything, but he followed his dreams and proved everyone wrong. He had to earn everyone's respect, which leads to the dreaded "you deserve a chance." Miz says Shane has earned a beating at WrestleMania. This was a great fired up promo from The Miz. Seriously, I have less than zero desire to see this match, but Miz's promo almost, not quite, but almost talked me into it. Really, really good promo.
I totally agree. First off, this was a great start to SmackDown, and a really, really good promo. Miz is very good on the mic. We all know this.
His character works fantastic.
Yeah, so this wasn't a shock, but when I saw this, I was like, man, that was a fantastic promo, and it really bought me. I don't want to see this match, but it really got me into actually being moderately interested in where they go with it.
Yeah, it's almost like we'll watch it through the window of the Southfield while we're having a tab, not be looking the other direction.
But I will be interested to see who wins.
That's where we've got.
Yeah.
We've got the point where we'll watch it through the window.
I will still watch it, yes.
So Byron says it's boss time, somehow making Sasha even uncooler than Cole does every Monday.
Byron makes everything uncool.
We had the Iconics versus Sasha and Bayley. The Iconics cut a promo on their way down to the ring, claiming Sasha and Bayley have been ducking them and went to Raw and NXT, but wouldn't dare show their faces on SmackDown. And then Lacey Evans happened at the start of this match.
What did she do?
She walked down the ring. She turned around. She walked away from the ring.
Mint. There's our coverage of Lacey done for this week.
I'm surprised you didn't give that segment of the week.
In Lacey Watch.
Couldn't make it through 2 shows without this nonsense happening, but never mind. And it was in the middle of a match too. Never mind.
What else is going on?
Stupid babyface Bayley gets distracted, allowing the Iconics to take control. Bayley eventually gets to Sasha for the hot tag. A Meteora gets a near 2 on Peyton. They trade pinfall attempts until Sasha lands a kick to the face before taking out Billy too. Sasha rolls Peyton back in, but Billy holds on. Bayley tries to attack Billy, but eats a big boot, and Peyton rolls Sasha up. Billy holding her hand somehow helps as the Iconics pick up the win. That will probably see them added to the tag title match at Mania. This was sloppy, but it was fine.
Yeah, it was really it was fine, but there was some really clunky moments. It did not have chemistry. The Iconics are not great in the ring. I mean, I love them.
They're not. They're very much like Miz. They're very much based on their character work.
Yeah, and I love their character work, but they're not good in the ring. And you know what? Bayley and Sasha seem still really capable of having some stinkers.
Well, I don't think they're capable anymore of pulling out great matches with people who are not very good.
Why? They used to be.
Yeah. But
I don't know what's happened.
Most people have regressed since they've come to the main roster.
It makes no sense, though, does it?
If your name's not Charlotte, you've pretty much regressed since you came to the main roster.
Or Elias.
Or Elias, yeah.
Why would you get worse? It doesn't make no sense.
Because you've got less motivation, because Raw sucks and SmackDown sucks.
Yeah, I know, SmackDown.
Yeah, I'll take SmackDown back, but Raw sucks.
Yeah, Raw's terrible.
So, Kayla interviews Ray backstage. He brings in his son Dominic, who I believe has been training up north with Lance Storm. Ray announces he'll be challenging Samoa Joe at Mania for the US title. That's a great match, but damn, I was really looking forward to Andrade versus Ray on the big stage.
So was I.
I was really looking forward to it.
Yeah, was one of the hottest feuds on SmackDown literally a month ago.
Yeah. As much as we give SmackDown a lot of credit, sometimes they've botched that angle so badly.
Yeah. I prefer SmackDown. It's a much better show, but it doesn't mean that they're not still capable of the infuriating booking that goes on across the whole company.
Mask versus Hair at Mania wrote itself, and they've just...
Didn't it? Yeah. And Andrade losing and having his hair shaved could have been a bit of a character change. And,
absolutely.
Yeah. We should book professional wrestling, shouldn't we?
We should. Kayla asks Dominic what he thinks of this, and he says Joe is a bully and he'll be front row to see his dad do what he does best, beat bullies and win championships. This was a nice feel-good little segment. I like this.
Yeah, it's absolutely fine to me. Absolutely fine. No complaints at all.
The KO show with Becky and Charlotte. Owens put over his new graphics and is dressed up for the occasion by wearing a tie and blazer over the top of his t-shirt. He talks about the road to WrestleMania, puts over Kofi, and says he will be watching the WWE title match at Mania very closely. KO brings out a limping Becky and then Charlotte. KO stirs the pot by reading out things that the three women in the triple threat match have said about each other. He says a lot have been said, or has been said, but people want to see them fight now. Charlotte says she would destroy Becky, and KO asks Becky to hold her response for a moment as he gets out of the ring. He gives her the go-ahead, and Becky wallops Charlotte, who responds by tailing her. They brawl all around the ringside area as referees and security attempt to separate them. They take out certain security members and continue to brawl. Eventually, order is somewhat restored. This was a fine segment, but again, this build feels disjointed and disconnected, which is hurting the match. In a vacuum, this was a good segment, but in the context of the build to Mania, it didn't do all that much to build my anticipation.
Yeah, I totally agree. The segment itself was fine, but at the same time, I'm slowly becoming less and less interested, to the point where I'm starting to care very little about this match, which is so sad. Why is Becky still limping?
I don't know. I've given up trying to understand the storyline.
It's just the segment itself was fine, but it was kind of catty women fighting as well. It was a little bit of a stereotype as well, and just kind of getting a bit sick of it, to be honest.
So Kayla interviews AJ backstage and talks to him about his match with Orton at Mania. She asks how he expects to beat someone who he himself admitted was built for WWE. AJ says Randy was a first-round draft pick and he's a walk-on, but look at him now. He mentions that Orton said this house was built long before AJ got here, and that just means Orton's got home field advantage at Mania. AJ, though, has no interest in building at WrestleMania. He's coming to tear the house down. Oh, and good luck to Kofi. Man, they wanted everyone to mention Kofi the night.
Hey, he's a babyface with friends.
Yeah. I thought this was good. I really liked the promo from AJ. I really liked how they've built AJ. Fired
up babyface AJ. Yeah. What more could you want?
I really like how they've built that match. I'm not massively looking forward to it. I think it'll be good,
but I'm not actively not.
But the storyline they've built, I think, has been great. So fair play to them.
And the booking of it's been really, really good. And the way they've written the reason why they don't like each other has been really good.
Yeah, totally agree. So Daniel Bryan came out and says Kofi getting his opportunity tonight is injustice. Injustice.
Shield.
Nobody knows more than him what it's like to be held down by the authority. He says this has not happened to Kofi. He points out that Kofi was handpicked to replace Mustafa Ali in the Gauntlet match and the Elimination Chamber match, and he fought valiantly in both of those matches, but he lost. He is simply a B-plus player.
Sellout.
The New Day interrupts. Kofi sends Big E and Xavier to the back. That doesn't seem smart. But we opened the Gauntlet match with Kofi Kingston versus Sheamus. Kofi hits an awesome Trust Fall style Fosbury flop. They worked a really strong match here. It was slow to start with, but they built up the underdog babyface story well, and Cesaro's interference for once added to the match. Kofi went for Trouble in Paradise, but Sheamus caught him and went for a cloverleaf, but Kofi kicked him off. Sheamus got the cloverleaf on for real this time, and Kofi fought towards the ropes, eventually cradling Sheamus for a nice near fall. Kofi just dodged the bro kick and hit Trouble in Paradise for the win. This, to me, was the best match of the whole gauntlet.
I agree. I agree, and
good.
it was a really good start. Sheamus is more than good in the ring, so I'm not surprised they had chemistry, and it was clear as well. And I think I agree with you. I think it was probably the best match within the gauntlet itself.
So, match 2 was Kofi versus Cesaro. Cesaro hit a running uppercut to the back of the neck before Kofi had realised where he was. Cesaro hit the swing before locking on the cloverleaf rather than his usual sharpshooter, which, you know, they both worked the back, but I did think it was nice to keep that continuity of the move that Sheamus was working, and then Cesaro worked the same move as well, changing up his style.
And tag team cohesion as well, it kind of worked.
Yeah. Cesaro continued to work over the back with the Boston Crab. Kofi then fought out of the neutralizer attempt and hit the SOS for the win. This was fine, not as good as the opening stretch.
No, but it kind of continued on the working of Kofi's back, and it was fine, and I had no complaints at this.
So next up, this was where this match started to fall off the rails for me. So it was Kofi versus Rowan. This one didn't last long, as Rowan destroyed Kofi in the ring and outside the ring, and then annihilated him with a steel chair, which got him DQ'd. But he continued the beating. Commentary did a good job of explaining that New Day could not make the save as they are banned from ringside. But Rowan stripped the announce table and hit the Iron Claw slam through the table. The beatdown after this was nicely done to build more odds for Kofi to overcome, but was largely unnecessary, as he already had huge odds to overcome. He was facing 5 top stars.
Yeah, they were sort of laying it on a bit too thick at this point, weren't they?
Really did feel like that. And the utter insistence on not beating Rowan for some inane reason necessitated an absolute mindless DQ which defied logic from a guy who was friends with the champ and wants more than anything to stop Kofi. He was in control of the match. If he'd been behind the 8 ball and got DQ'd out of desperation to at least do some damage, then that would have been one thing, but this was just stupid.
Yeah, and it made no sense. I don't know why they're so desperate to protect Rowan. Like, he's literally just basically like the muscle for Bryan. He's not, like, is he going to get pushed out of Mania?
I've got a funny feeling he is, you know.
He shouldn't be.
Yeah, I've got a funny feeling he is. So part 4 was Kofi versus Joe. This was the thing I was most looking forward to, and Joe dominated the majority of this match, and they slowed the pace down significantly, but Joe worked his holds, which made them far more interesting than your standard rest hold. Joe hit a huge lariat, which nearly killed Kofi, and then tried to lock the Coquina clutch on, but Kofi fought it and eventually hit a jawbreaker. But as he ran at Joe in the corner, Joe caught him with the ST Joe. Joe went for the muscle buster, but Kofi slipped out and rolled Joe up for the win. I'm all for underdog stories, but at this point, I've wrote, this is getting a bit too much for me. If this was the independent scene, they would have been mercilessly vilified for this, because it would have been, like, quote, unrealistic. And to add to that, Joe locked on the Coquina clutch and choked Kofi out after the match. Eventually, the referee squad pulled him off, and out came Orton. So Kofi versus Orton was obviously next. Orton made a funny reference to their 2009 feud by yelling stupid when trash-talking Kofi in the crowd, which I liked. They slowed this down to a snail's pace, though, and unlike the prior segment with Joe, the rest holds were just that, rest holds. Orton went for the turnbuckle punches, but Kofi shoved him off. Orton went for the RKO, but Kofi avoided and hit Trouble in Paradise, but Orton rolled out the ring. That sequence in itself was great. Later on, Orton hits his draping DDT, but Kofi then avoided the RKO again and got a backslide for the pin and the win. This story may have been a little too much for me, but Kofi worked so hard in this gauntlet and does deserve the match at Mania as he celebrates here with the New Day. But then here comes
Vince to ruin the party.
Oh dear.
Because yet again, we've got to screw over the crowd, because that's what we do, because we're the McMahons.
Vince congratulated Kofi and said he was going to WrestleMania. If he could defeat one more opponent.
Who?
He told Big E and Xavier to get out of here. Who? Oh, out came the champ. So part 6 was Bryan versus Kofi. And at this point in my notes I've wrote, I swear if they beat Bryan here, this will reach new heights of stupidity that I have not yet found words for. They worked a really good short match here as Bryan dominated early. He hit a huge top rope back suplex, which got 2, and then locked on the label lock, but Kofi got the ropes. Kofi countered a kick from Bryan with a sloppy SOS that got 2. Bryan went for the forever drop kicks in the corner, channeling his inner Rocky Romero. Kofi went for a splash, but Bryan avoided it and started hitting the arm trap stomps. He set up for the Psycho knee with full yesing present, which was interesting, and hit it for the pin and the win. I like that they're continuing Kofi's storyline and giving him more hurdles to overcome week by week. But for me, within the setting of this gauntlet match, this was too much. It was the equivalent of someone taking like 5 Canadian destroyers on an indie show, kicking out and then winning in terms of like the original 5 matches. This would have been rightly wrote off as poor psychology on the indie scene, but this match was the same to me. He took the best of 5 top wrestlers, was beaten down after matches, went through an announce table and all the rest. It was just too much.
Yeah, it was too much. They didn't need to do anything else other than the gauntlet match. I didn't actually mind the idea of the gauntlet match. I think it may have been too much in itself, but like
But
in terms of putting odds in his way, that was fine.
Even just thinking about it now, right? He beat Cesaro and Sheamus, okay? The tag team guys. You can write that off as they used to work as a tag team.
Yeah.
And Kofi, yes, he's overcome the odds a little bit, but he's beat 2 guys who are in a tag team, okay? He beats Rowan. Rowan is Bryan's muscle. In my mind, not too important. You can beat Rowan. That's fine. And then brought Orton out. You can have AJ cost him the match.
Yeah, and then it gets him through.
The New Day aren't interfering. And yes, it's a bit like, well, Kofi didn't win on his own. But Kofi's gone through 3 guys already. He shouldn't have to win on his own. He's a babyface, not a blinking superhero.
And they've proved through the show that people like Kofi.
Exactly. And AJ even referenced Kofi in his promo. And then the 5th guy comes along, it's Samoa Joe, and you can get a cheap roll-up win. And yes, it's not great, but Joe needs to be protected. And that just sells Kofi as smart, and he did whatever he could to win because he is a babyface. But he just went through 4 other guys. Like, that's fine to beat Joe. And that is how you get to the Bryan thing. If you want to do that, fine. But the way they did it didn't work for me.
Too much, yeah, I agree. And they didn't even get to the match anyway because they still haven't got there, and they've got the whole New Day suddenly now saying that they're going to quit.
Which I think is cool. I really like the YouTube video they did.
So do I.
I thought it was cool. But this was another fun episode of SmackDown, even if I wasn't as enamoured with the gauntlet as pretty much everybody else was. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next week. Just as an aside, they've announced a fatal 4-way between Sonya, Mandy, Naomi and Carmella for next week. Winner goes on to face Asuka at Mania, so I imagine we get some kind of weird finish where both Sonya and Mandy get a pinfall at the same time or pin the same person or whatever, which will lead to a triple threat at Mania, which should be fun. It's fine.
It is the very definition of fine.
Yeah, but
it is not good, it is not great, it does not suck.
With Charlotte and Becky gone, what else can Asuka do? That's probably the best thing they can do for her.
Sadly, very probably, yeah.
So, SmackDown viewership. SmackDown this week drew 2.208 million viewers, up 0.5% from last week's 2.198 million.
Ooh.
But it is the second best viewership of the year for SmackDown. Still not amazing, though. They still have a lot of work to do before Fox, but at least things are more stable than they were a month or so ago.
They still have a lot of work, though, like you say, because really, they're going to need a lot more viewers on Fox. They're going to be expected to have a lot more viewers on Fox, and Fox will not be happy.
So next up, we've got NXT. We open with Triple H and Goldie. Triple H gets a godlike reaction and the crowd chants NXT. Hunter says NXT is special. He talks about getting to WWE being a dream, but sometimes reality happens. He was going to announce Gargano versus Ciampa, but reality has made that an impossibility because reality has put Ciampa's dream on hold due to his neck surgery. He has had to relinquish his NXT championship, but when one dream ends, another begins. Gargano is still going to New York to compete for the NXT Championship, but Hunter announces a fatal 5-way tonight between Ricochet, Adam Cole, Aleister Black, Velveteen Dream and Matt Riddle to determine Gargano's opponent for TakeOver. The match at TakeOver between Gargano and tonight's winner will be 2 out of 3 falls match to determine a true champion.
I think that's smart booking as well, because no matter what's going to happen at TakeOver, there needs to be some kind of definitive winner that's going to go forward with the title, and I think... I only like 2 out of 3 falls if there's a reason for it. like there's been some kind of, odd finishes in the matches. But I think in this scenario, I do quite like it. The idea that they need to have a definitive champion moving forward. Obviously, it's sad that we've had to miss out on the Ciampa Gargano match that we've been waiting like well over a year for now.
Nearly 2 years.
Yeah, like we've been waiting so long for that, and it's a shame that we're not going to get it. But still, like whatever happens at Takeover, it should be a great match.
So Kathy Kelly is backstage. Conor Reeves comes out of the locker room, makes some unconvincing comments about Kathy checking him out, and says tonight's main event won't be the finest. That happened. And then Forgotten Sons appear, saying they've been forgotten again, but next week they face Black and Ricochet in the final of the Dusty Classic. They want either Black or Ricochet to win tonight, so they're not totally focused on next week. They will go on to face War Raiders at TakeOver, and then Jackson Riker says they will be forgotten no more.
This happened. Yeah. They're getting pushed. This is fine, I guess.
Yeah. We get a video package of Ricochet, Aleister Black and Velveteen Dream talking about tonight's main event. And we then visit the hospital to find out about Ciampa's surgery. This put Ciampa over big in a babyface light.
Yeah, he's going to have to come back babyface as well.
The important notes really were the surgeon saying this would take most normal people a year to get back from, so I assume it's going to be less than a year just to paint him as a superhero.
Yeah.
And the surgeon saying the surgery went perfectly and couldn't have gone better, which is great news. And then we got a video package of Matt Riddle and Adam Cole about tonight's main event. And then Kathy interviews Io and Kairi backstage and asks if they are worried about facing each other in a fatal four-way. Io says nothing can come between their friendship. Kairi says they both want to be NXT Women's Champion and they will fight each other if they have to. Bianca then interrupted and said neither one of them deserved to go to TakeOver because if Shayna hadn't interfered last week, she would have beaten Io. She said she's going to run through them both at TakeOver because her mindset is undefeated. She pushes past Kairi and Io has to hold Kairi back. This was good build for the title match.
Yeah, I'm quite looking forward to this match. So I think this is more than fine. It's serviceable. It built towards what's coming. I'm very interested in sort of the now getting a little bit shades of grey with Bianca. She's very clearly more of the heel than babyface side.
She's like a heel tweener, isn't she?
Yeah, but this was more than fine, and I'm looking forward to this match at TakeOver.
So then we had our main event. This was a Fatal 5-way match, and it was a non-stop 15-minute main event, and very difficult to recap because there was so much going on. It did allow for some great interactions, such as how Black and Ricochet interacted, and then the reigniting of the Black and Dream rivalry, the brief exchange between Black and Riddle. Black hit a lovely Cape Raider on both Cole and Dream at one point, but Cole stopped him hitting Black Mass on Dream. Riddle and Cole then had a cool standoff before trading strikes, and Cole stamping on Riddle's feet, his bare feet. Cole went for a super kick, but Riddle caught it and locked on the Bro Mission until Dream broke things up. The three exchanged some stiff strikes for a while until Ricochet and Black got back in, and everyone hit big moves for an all 5 people down spot. The crowd at this point was losing their minds. We then got a Tower of Doom spot with Ricochet getting the worst of things. Black and Dream fought back and forth until Black got the best of things with a bridging German, but Riddle broke it up with a Broton and followed it up with a variation of God's last gift on Black, but Cole broke it up. He hit a super kick and then the brainbuster on the knee, but this time Ricochet broke it up. Ricochet and Cole fought back and forth. Cole hit 2 super kicks, but when he went for the Shining Wizard, Ricochet moved and hit a Poison Rana. He followed it up with a Sasuke special at the outside. Riddle and Dream had an awkward sequence, but it ended with a Bro Mission on Dream. Cole pulled the ref out the ring and Riddle took him out. Black hit Black Mass on Riddle, but then got caught with the Dream Valley Driver. When Dream went for the Purple Rainmaker on Riddle, though, Ricochet leaped to the top and sent Dream onto Black with Hurricane Rana to the outside. Ricochet hit the Shooting Star Press on Riddle and got 2, but Cole broke it up with a Shining Wizard to the back of Ricochet's head and pinned him for the win and the shot at TakeOver.
Yes, finally. So obviously, I think this idea is losing streaks coming to the end now, I would suggest.
One would seem to think the same.
This was a really, really good match. I really, really enjoyed it. It was non-stop. It was frenetic. And there was just big move after big move. I really, really enjoyed this match. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do now at TakeOver.
Yeah, I think we talked about it a little bit last week. They could go one of 2 ways with this.
Yeah, there's so many.
Depends what's going on with Gargano, basically.
It does, yeah, whether he's going up or not.
Yeah. There was only one match on this show, but it was a great match and absolutely crazy from start to finish. A super fun sort of spot fest with the right winner. The rest of the show built really well to TakeOver. Great episode.
Yeah, really good episode. NXT, as usual, always good every week.
And with that, we will move on to 205 Live. We opened with the usual Drake Maverick video package hyping the nice show, and then we came to Mike Kanellis versus Akira Tozawa. Mike and Maria came out with their awesome Van Halen-esque theme song. Maria cut a promo before the match claiming Mike is better than the best in the world, and she also called Drake Maverick lazy whilst healing on the crowd. So Mike's job is sort of de facto on the line tonight against Tozawa, and the story commentary we're telling is whether Maria is a good or bad influence on Mike. He dominated the majority of the match, as he has been doing until Tozawa fought back with the Hurricane Rana and Shining Wizard. Tozawa landed a missile dropkick, but Mike kicked out at 2. And Tozawa locked on the octopus, but Kanellis fought out. Later, both found themselves on the top rope, and Kanellis hit a super Death Valley driver, but Tozawa kicked out at the very, very, very last minute. Mike lost his composure at this point, but Maria calmed him down and told him to put Tozawa in his place. Mike then brutalized Tozawa, but he fought back with an enziguri. He tried to go up top, but Maria blocked his route, so he switched corners, but when he jumped off the top for his senton, he ate the knees, and the inverted crossroads got the win for Mike. This was a good match, probably the best Mike has had since coming to 205 Live. Tozawa remains great.
Yeah, I agreed. I think it's the best Bennett match. The best Kanellis match I've seen in quite some time. And it was Tozawa that got it out of him, so that's not a surprise, is it?
No.
I don't really want to see Tozawa lose too many matches like this, though, I must be honest.
I thought it was fine, to be honest, though.
But it serves the angle, so I don't mind. They've obviously built something a little bit bigger for Kanellis, so we'll see where they go with this. But again, I have total faith in 205 Live, so more power to them. Keep it going.
So Kayla interviewed Cedric backstage, but they were soon interrupted by Tony Nese and Buddy Murphy. Nese said they've traded wins in the past, but Tony has got better, while Cedric has stayed the same. Murphy cut a great promo about continually beating Cedric and said he would do so again at Mania. Cedric then tried to drive a wedge between the two by questioning whether Buddy even believed in Nese, because he was already talking about beating Cedric at Mania. Cedric leaves and Murphy asks Nese if he's buying any of this. Nese sort of shrugged it off and said, but he always said Tony would be Cruiserweight champion one day. And that did not impress Buddy Murphy.
No, and we've been suspecting that these seeds of dissension were being sown between the two of them, and it's clear now that it's happening. I thought it was a really, really productive promo. Very short, very sweet, but did absolutely exactly what it had to do and told the story so well. And
everybody played the parts really well as well.
Yeah.
So next week we've got Lucha House Party versus Gulak, Gallagher and Carrillo, which will be interesting. And then we had our main event of Tony Nese versus Cedric Alexander. I loved this match. I really did. Crowd was more into this early than your average 205 Live crowd, but then they kind of died during the middle and then really came back to it in the end.
Oh, yeah.
But they paced things well early, working a slower than usual style, but still keeping the crowd engaged, as I said. I really liked the sequence where Cedric went for a forearm, but Nese ducked and hit a lovely Northern Light suplex. And the main reason I liked it was Cedric kicked out by slapping Nese's chest, breaking the bridge. Mm-hmm. Little things. Nese hit a lovely pump handle driver for 2. They fought on the apron, and Cedric ended up tied up in the rope. So as Nese slingshotted into the ring, he hit a springboard moonsault for 2. Nese went for the running Nese, but Cedric rolled him up for a close 2, and then hit a Michinoku driver for 2. Alexander then went for a springboard, but Nese had it scouted, and palm struck Alexander in midair. Alexander was now stuck on the top rope, and Nese joined them. They traded right hands until both hit at the same time, knocking each other to the apron and then the outside. They both just beat the count at 9. They trash-talked and exchanged right hands and forearms until Alexander caught Nese with an uppercut. They went back and forth until both went for super kicks, but their legs got caught. Nese hit a flurry of kicks, but when he went for the leg sweep, Cedric leapt over it and hit a beautiful kneeling super kick for a very, very close 2. Nese fought out of a superplex attempt and sent Cedric to the outside before hitting a stunning Fosbury flop. Back in, he went for the 450, but Cedric again kicked out at 2. That surprised me. Nese went for the running Nese, but Cedric hit a Spanish fly for 2. He followed straight up with a lumbar check, but Nese kicked out again. That really surprised me. Mm-hmm. Cedric had serious disbelief face, as did I, and the crowd was really into it by this point. Nigel made a great call that the only other man to kick out the lumbar check is who?
Buddy Murphy.
Yeah.
There we go.
Really good. Cedric went for the lumbar check again, but Nese fought out. They exchanged roll-ups until Nese hit a big knee. He followed up as Cedric fell into the corner with the running Nese for the win. Post-match, the crowd chanted, "That was awesome," as Nese and Cedric shook hands and hugged. And out came Buddy Murphy. He shook Nese's hand and then raised it, but as soon as Nese turned his back, Murphy hit the V-trigger and laid out Nese. I'd maybe have waited a week to do the turn, but this was an incredible main event, and Nice versus Murphy should be a ton of fun at Mania, even if it's obviously going to be on the pre-show of the 24-hour Mania.
Yeah, we've been predicting that Nice was going to win this tournament for quite some time. You know that I've been well and truly on the Nice hype train for quite a while now.
And I'm fully on board now too.
Yeah, this was an unbelievable match. It was the right winner for the tournament, and I must be honest, like I'm not of the same opinion as you. I think there's only 2 weeks left until Mania. I think you need time.
I'd have just done the turn next week. It just felt rushed in the main event. You could have had them come out, congratulate them, hug, and then you could have done a segment next week where they were going to do a contract signing and buddies all buddy, no pun intended, all night with Nice. And then all of a sudden, as soon as he turns his back to the contract signing after they shake hands, he destroys them. Like, I don't mind the turn. I think the turn's necessary.
Yeah.
But I just felt like it was a bit rushed. But that's a minor complaint.
But either way, this was a fantastic match, and I'm so looking forward to Murphy against Nice.
We will very much be streaming on the YouTube. We will be streaming the pre-show on our phones.
We will not be outside
at the Southfield while this match is on.
We will not be outside smoking at that point.
Not at that point.
No.
And with that, I think we'll move on to any other business. So we've got New Japan Cup results since we were last on air. Colt Cabana defeated Toru Yano and Sanada defeated Misu in the last second round matches. In the quarterfinals, Ishii defeated Yoshihashi and Okada defeated Ospreay. And then Sanada defeated Cabana and Tanahashi defeated Zack Sabre Jr., which is Zack Sabre Jr.'s first ever loss in the New Japan Cup.
Ooh.
That means Ishii versus Okada and Tana versus Sanada takes place tomorrow morning, or in a few hours actually now as we're recording this, with the final on Sunday. Personally, I think both Okada beats Ishii and then Sanada beats Tana tomorrow, with Okada beating Sanada on Sunday and facing Jay White at MSG. I don't know what you think.
I think so. I won't be shocked if Tana wins.
I'd just be really surprised to see them do Okada Tana in a New Japan Cup final.
Yeah, it's just a waste. I mean, it is for MSG. It is for MSG, so like I kind of get it, but it would be a waste for me, so I wouldn't do it. But Sanada could really do with that kind of level of exposure and getting that test of going up against Okada. Did he face Okada during Okada's reign?
Yeah, they had a match. I want to say it was New Beginning
last year, which
I
good.
Absolutely loved.
Yeah,
I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, so
I think it was New Beginning, but don't quote us on that. But it was sometime early last year. But I think it was New Beginning.
So he deserves to get that kind of run again. So hopefully that'll be a great match. I can't see why it wouldn't be.
It's an out run Okada. I'd be shocked if it wasn't.
Yeah, exactly.
And with that, I watched Ring of Honor's 17th anniversary show this week. We obviously sort of talked about the results last week, but I just thought I'd run through sort of my thoughts after having watched the show. I thought King vs. Skull was disappointing for like two men of their talent, and Marty really screwed up the ending because he didn't get the umbrella out the ring in time, which just made Paul Turner look like a bit of an idiot. Shane Taylor versus Jeff Cobb was a great 12-minute sprint. You would not imagine that because I like Shane Taylor, but he's not great. But my God, what a 12-minute sprint they had.
Cool.
It was just two hosses doing a lot of hoss stuff and then some non-hoss stuff with them just jumping and doing ridiculous things at the end. And I really, really loved the finish because they did sort of two Tour of Ireland finishes where he hit the Tour of the Islands and then Shane was like just starting to sit up almost like he was Undertaker or something, and Cobb was like, what the hell is this? So he just hit him. He just went, nah, I'm going to hit another Tour of the Islands and finish Shane Taylor off. So I love that finish. Iwatani versus Klein was a bit rough and included a German suplex, which I swear to God nearly killed Iwatani. Very, very scary. Ugh. I thoroughly enjoyed Taven versus Lethal. I get why it's been so divisive, but I thought it was a very good Broadway. Rush versus Vandita wasn't as good as I expected, but it was still fun and different to anything else on the show. And then Villain Enterprise versus Briscoes was utterly insane. Mark Briscoe's a nut job. PCO's a nut job. Brody King worked this match with a broken hand and is a nut job. And you know what? When Jay Briscoe's possibly the more sane person in the ring,
you've got
not
problems.
Counting his own political views, I would just like that, just in terms of character work. When he's the most sane person in the ring, you've got problems.
Yes.
But it was awesome. And I get that it's not for everyone, but it really worked for me, and I thought it was great. And overall, very, very good show.
Good. I'll have to make sure I check that out because I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, definitely check it out. And I've just got a recommended match from you from All Japan Pro Wrestling's Dream Series Day 6. It's a tag title match. Strong BJ versus Violent Giants. Absolutely awesome. Just go out your way to watch the match. Kento Miyahara and Nomura have a fantastic main event that you know, I don't like to put my star rating hat on, but probably 4.5. This match blows it out the water. It's a semi-main. It's absolutely fantastic. Go out of your way to watch it.
All Japan's very underrated. Like, it's not what it used to be or anything like that. Even, like, you know, 8 years ago, it's not what it used to be. But it's still got some very good wrestlers in it. It's booked pretty well on the whole. And
the last 3 matches on the show were all varying degrees of great.
yeah, so, like, I would encourage people to go out and check out All Japan if they can.
Daisuke Sekimoto's awesome.
Yes, he is.
And with that, I think we'll move on to our final segment of the week. So, what are we doing this week, Jonathan?
So, considering that we're well on our way to WrestleMania, what we thought we'll do over the next few weeks, our final segments will always be focused on WrestleMania, leading up to our final predictions, which I fully intend to win again.
Yeah, whatever.
So, what we're going to look at for this week is our favourite WrestleMania matches of all time. Adam, do you want to go first on this one?
Okay, I'm going to go Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 21. Just unbelievable match. And I always love the story as well of everybody saying to Shawn, right, this is going to be the finish. I think it was an agent was sitting down talking to Shawn and Angle and saying, right, so the finish is going to be Kurt's going to hit the Angle slam and pin you, Shawn. Is that okay? And Shawn turns around and go, absolutely not.
I want to tap out.
Yeah, tap me out with the Angle lock.
Yeah, like he actually said, like, I want to tap out.
Awesome story.
Yeah. And
awesome match, though. Awesome match.
Because that's in Shawn's autobiography, Heartbreak and Triumph, and it really shows how far Shawn had come.
Yeah. As
well, in terms of his personal life and his personality and his outlook on life. Right, for me, I'm gonna go for Shawn as well. For anyone that doesn't know, Shawn Michaels is my favourite wrestler of all time. It doesn't really come close. I'm going to go for Shawn against Chris Jericho at WrestleMania 19. I think Mania 19 is one of the most underrated Manias of all time. But,
great show.
But this match is out of this world.
But don't spoil next week's final segment.
I will not, don't worry. This match stole the show. It was an absolute masterpiece of just back and forth wrestling. And the finish was awesome as well, with Shawn winning via roll-up.
And then the post-match was great as well.
And that's what I was going to say. And, Jericho going, to hug his hero, Shawn Michaels, and then
Chris Jericho is not a nice person.
No, he's horrible. He's been horrible for the majority of his career. It's amazing we all like him so much.
Yeah, he's great. Well, I think we'll get out the way the match everybody knows I'm going to mention. Stone Cold Steve Austin, Bret Hart, WrestleMania 13. It is the match that got me into pro wrestling.
I feel like we've talked about this more than anything.
That's why I felt like I had to say it.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm going to say on that, because you've heard me wax lyrical about that match about 17 times, and we're only into podcast number 15, so whatever.
Right, I'm going to say one that we've both talked about, and I'll go for TLC 2.
Yes.
Just utterly mental, crazy. 3 of the best tag teams in wrestling history. Ian C, the Dudley Boys, and my personal favourite as a child, the Hardy Boys.
Ian C for life.
No, the Hardy Boys were the coolest, because Jeff used to wear a net vest, and that was cool somehow.
Yes, because it was 1999. Well, it wasn't 99 at that point. It was 2001, but,
somehow it was cool.
But
yeah, lots of crazy spots, lots of dangerous moves, but put it all together and it made one hell of a WrestleMania match.
Okay, I'm going to go WrestleMania 3. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Macho Man Randy Savage. I've heard a few people say to me, that match was great at the time. It doesn't hold up now. Those people are wrong. I'd just like to say, I watched that match not that long ago. It is still fantastic. Steamboat's unreal. Savage is unreal. The two of the best ever to do it, just tearing it up for the IC title. They get about 20 minutes. It's awesome.
Right, I'm going to go for another of my personal favourite wrestlers, and one of my favourite matches of his. WrestleMania 29, The Undertaker against CM Punk. Whatever's been said about Punk nowadays, whether rightly or wrongly, he was an unbelievable professional wrestler, amazing in the ring and utterly brilliant at character work. And I loved the build of that feud against Taker. I know it was a bit low in spots regarding the use of Paul Bearer's passing. But at the same time, this match was out of this world, back and forth. There were several times where, I know you'll agree, where people genuinely, I know I did, genuinely
I bought it after the Tombstone.
Yeah, genuinely bit that Punk was going to end the streak, which is ridiculous when you think about it.
Yeah, it was never going to happen, but we somehow bought it because how well they worked the match.
Yeah, and it also has special significance for me. I think it was probably one of Punk's last great matches.
It was probably Taker's last great match.
But as I was going to say, like, it was Taker's last great match. It really was, because the next year, obviously, it was Lesnar and everything that came after that.
Okay, I'm going to go with WrestleMania 8. Ric Flair, Randy Savage.
Oh, that's really, really good. I wish I'd thought of that one.
Two of the greatest of all time. Like, the most complete wrestler of all time, in my opinion, Ric Flair. The most complete performer of all time. And Randy Savage, who, as we talked about in the last segment, well, the last match I referenced, is an absolute fantastic talent.
Right, I'll go for Mick Foley against Edge from WrestleMania 22.
Yeah, great match.
Lots of blood, lots of violence, lots of dangerous stuff, lots of fire.
Great stuff.
Just two men beating the living daylights out of each other. Mick still being Mick Foley, and Edge being, at that point, probably the best heel in professional wrestling.
So, one more each, do you reckon?
Yeah, let's go one each while I'm trying to think of my next one now.
I'm going to have to go Taker versus Shawn WrestleMania 25. There's a million matches I really want to choose, but I don't feel like we could actually send out this podcast without talking about Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25. Unbelievable match. I, at that point, wasn't watching WWE, but I would always check out Mania every year, and I remember watching that match and just, I think there was days and possibly even weeks went by where I would just consistently think about how amazing that match was. It was that level of great.
Yeah, it's a masterpiece.
WrestleMania 26 match between them was really, really good as well, and arguably should have been even better because of the stipulation that was on the line of Shawn's career being on the line, which harked back to a couple of years earlier when he retired Ric Flair.
Yeah,
but
I'm sorry, I love you.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, 25 was the better match. It was just great.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to go for one that's, again, another one of, like, in terms of my personal recollection of wrestling, it's a special moment. It's tainted, but it's a special moment. WrestleMania 20. Chris Benoit against Triple H against Shawn Michaels. Notice how a lot of mine include Shawn Michaels. It's almost like I have a personal favourite. But, like, obviously this match is somewhat tainted now because of everything else, which we are not going to discuss.
No.
But it's an unbelievable triple threat. It's back and forth. It's non-stop. It's almost like an Attitude Era match in the way that it's wrestled. It's just like a fight, but it's fantastic. And the moment at the end where Benoit submits Triple H.
You know me. You know I was a massive Eddie fan, but I was never a massive Benoit fan. That's not a retrospective thing. I just wasn't.
No,
a fan
I know
of
you
him
weren't.
At the time.
I mean, I was, but I know you weren't.
But the moment they have at the end of the match where the two of them are in the ring together
is
like,
special.
At the time, like I can't watch it now. I can't bring myself to.
No, I never have.
At the time, when you looked at it, it was such a special moment for those two close friends. Whether you liked Chris Benoit, whether you liked Eddie Guerrero, it was a human moment.
Yeah, it was.
And sadly, we can't look at it anymore.
No, but it was the perfect end of that WrestleMania, and it felt genuinely touching. And I think for me, that match is also connected to that moment. So I'll leave that as my last one.
So with that, I think we will end the show for this week. We will obviously be back next Friday for the final sort of regular episode, because the week after that we're going to have multiple episodes, but we'll talk about that more next week, and we'll give you a rundown of what the sort of episode structure looks like for the following week, with it being Mania weekend. But unless you've got anything else to add, Jonathan, I think we'll get out of here.
Nothing new to add this week. We look forward to next week, because I cannot wait for WrestleMania.
Sorry, we're out of time. We'll see you next week on Two Man Brief.